Okay, so okay, later. Okay. So we are going to find the domain today. Domain is what? X values. Okay. So what's different here about this graph in number 1 than what we did before? It does. So you know what? I'm going to skip up to this one here. You can do it on your whiteboard if you want. You can draw it on your paper, whatever you want. I'm going to start with this. I think this will be easier to start out with. It's not on your paper. So again, you can draw it on your whiteboard if you want, or you can put it on your paper. So we have an arrow here on this one. And so we want to, for our domain, this is a line segment, ray, what's this called? Do you remember what that's called? Ray. It's a ray. It has a starting point and then it goes on forever there. So it's a ray. What is my starting point here? So what is the x value of that point? So the point is 3, 1. What is the x value of the point? 3. So my domain is going to be x values have what relationship to 3? Because this arrow means it does what? Continues on to infinity. Very good. It keeps going on forever. So is it going to be greater than 3? Greater than or equal to 3? Less than or equal to 3? Greater than or equal to, because we are including the 3. So let's go on to another one. Questions on that? So why didn't we list points like we did on the domain and range before? Why didn't we just list a bunch of numbers? Why didn't I go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? What's different here? It continues. So that means we have all the numbers between 3 and 4 also, all the numbers between 4 and 5, all the numbers between 5 and 6, and so forth. So this is different. It's a continuous number of values. Okay, so let's go back to one on your worksheet there. So now we don't have any arrows on that. It's got a beginning point and an ending point. So we like to start with the smallest. What is the x value that goes with the smallest? Our domain is the x-axis. What's that x value that goes with that? What's the x value that goes with this point here? -5. So x has what relationship to that -5? What would these values going this direction be? Bigger than, less than, greater than or equal to? So this would have a 4, we have 3, -4, -3, -2, -1, and so forth. What are those values in relationship to that value of -5? Are they bigger or are they smaller? Bigger. So x is greater than or equal to -5? Greater than or equal to, because this is a closed dot. It's a point. It would have to be an open dot like this one over here in order for it to be just greater than. And at the same time, x is less than or equal to what value over here?
2 + 1.
Yes, that x value is a 1. So it's less than or equal to?
Less. Not really.
So greater than goes over here. So we want less than over here, less than or equal to, or less than? Less than or equal to, because it is a closed circle. So we can write that as one statement also. So if you want to, you don't have to write it both ways, but if you want to, you can write it -5, less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 1. I don't care which way you write it. You just need to do one of those two. Questions on that? Oh, this is something new, totally new. Do we have a question? Just helping each other. Did you have a question? Sandy? No. Okay, so let's go to this one. What is the x value farthest to the left on this one? -2. X is greater than -2, less than -2, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Greater than -2, because why not equal to? Open circle, so it doesn't include that -2. Does that make sense? And at the same time, x is what relationship to this point? What's that x value there? 6. What relationship is to that? Less than or equal to, because it's including the 6. It's a closed dot. Does that make sense? Okay, and so, thank you. And then you could write it like this if you wanted to. Either one of those is fine. You don't have to do both. Okay, on to the next one. Anybody still looking at this? Okay, so let's do this one. These are arrows over here, right? So that means it's going on forever. In what direction?
Right.
To the left. And what are we? Let's just get what it is first. What's this x value over here? 5. The x value is what relationship to that 5? Less than or equal to? Less than or equal to, because this here does not have an open circle, so that is a point there. There are points all over this line. This line is an infinite number of points there. What's that? Okay. If we talked about what's happening over here on the left, what do the arrows mean is what's happening? What's happening over on the left? X is going towards what? What did you just say? A negative something. Negative what? So the arrow means it keeps going more and more. Negative infinity. So this is the first time you probably heard of negative infinity. So it's going towards negative infinity. We're going to use that later when we do interval notation. But here we don't have to say it. We just say x is less than or equal to 5. Okay, on this one, what's happening on number 4? Okay, what's happening on this one? This goes towards, let's start this side first. What is this going? Forever, to infinity. Okay, so x is less than infinity, and at the same time, x has what relationship over here? What's happening with this arrow here? It's going towards positive or negative? Negative. So x is greater than negative infinity. Why don't I put an equals there? So infinity is just an idea. It's not a number. So we can never actually reach that. We're just saying it goes towards infinity. Does that make sense? So we never put an equal to there on that. Okay. You ready to do the U-try, or do you need another one? Yeah, I'm going to have you do it. I heard more that said they wanted to try the U-try, so go ahead. Let me say something about this here. Is this an open circle or a closed circle here at this very first point? Closed, yes. So that is a closed circle. It would have an open circle if it was open.
You are good, right?
I don't know.
I still looking at that. I need to do the doctor stuff. What's the one? I don't know that.
Like, could I do something?
I can do that for my I do like
That's exactly. So this value here is a 2, and we have x is greater than or equal to 2. These values are bigger than that. Does that make sense? Some students wanted to talk about infinity. If you want to, you can say and x is less than infinity if you want to. You don't have to. Let me go back to something because I had some questions about this last class too. So this x value here at this point here, is that included here when we say from less than infinity and greater than negative infinity? Is this value, this point here, this x value of that point, is that included in there? Yeah. So it's everything in between negative infinity and infinity. So it's still included. We don't need to write anything about that point there. It's in there. What's the x value at that point? 0. So 0 is less than infinity and it's greater than negative infinity. So it's already included. We don't need to write it in there. I know that's a little confusing. It's the first time you've seen something like this. Is 0 smaller than infinity? Do you know what infinity is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is 0 smaller than that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it bigger than negative infinity? Mm-hmm. Is 0 big? Yeah. So it's included in there. Okay, so I know this is a little tricky. Okay, so now we're going to do interval notation. So interval notation is really small. It's a very small window. You want to write just as little as possible. It means a lot, though. So we always put the smallest number on the left. What is, let's start with the biggest number, though. What is this number here? What is this x value here with this? 4. So we're going to put a 4 there. And then what does this arrow mean over here? Negative infinity. So we're going to put a negative infinity here. So negative infinity is not a number. It's just an idea. So we're going to put a parentheses. If it includes the number, we put a bracket. Is the 4 included here on this? No. So we put a parentheses. If it were included, we would put a bracket. This is what it would look like if it were included. If there was a closed circle there. It's not, so we don't write it like that. Okay, so number 7. Questions on that? That's called interval notation. Starting and ending. Always the smallest on the left, the biggest on the right. It has to be smaller than bigger. Okay, so smallest. What's the smallest over here? -4. Are we including that -4? Is it included? Yes. So bracket or parentheses? Bracket. What's happening over here? Good. A arrow means infinity. Parentheses or bracket? Parentheses because? Yeah, well, infinity is not a number. It's just an idea. So it never actually, you know, it's just an idea. So we always put parentheses for infinity. I know that's kind of tricky. Questions before we go on to the next one. Always smallest on the left, biggest on the right. Okay. Do we need one more before we do this? Or do you one more? Okay, let me do one more. Let's do okay, so we're going to write this in inequality notation, or excuse me, interval notation. Smallest number here for the domain. Easy to get the x and the y mixed up. So what's the smallest domain x value? -4, right? So that x value is -4. Parentheses or bracket? Parentheses, because it does not include the -4. And then what would be the biggest number? The y value, or not the y value, but the x value? What's the x value of this point? 1. Bracket or parentheses? Are you guys having trouble understanding it? No? Okay, bracket or parentheses on the 1? Bracket. The one, so smallest to biggest, 4 is not included, open circle, 1 is included, bracket. Okay, go ahead and do the U try then, number 8. Is this right?
Oh, wait.
This side?
Oh, this one?
Like,
So you're trying to find domains of the x. So if you start at
was it on the right side?
and
And then that's the parentheses because the one on this
arrow, so it keeps on going
I don't know, I think that's
So like that means that all of this to the right of so x is greater than
no, because or this is an open circle, this is a closed circle. Yeah, but she would say it's an open circle. Did she not earlier? She was like, which one was it? Was this one, and she put a circle right there, and then it was a closed circle. Yeah. You remember that? Did you do that? Miss Costello? I'm pretty sure that's what I did. Because see, these ones, do these have circles on them? No. The ones that it's open circle have circles.
Okay, so on this problem here, our smallest to the left here, what's happening on the left? What's happening on the left? Yeah. What does the arrow mean?
That it's infinity.
Positive or negative?
Negative.
Good. Negative infinity on the left. And then what's the farthest right number?
No, I put it at 3.
3. Good. Bracket because it includes that. That's a point. It's not an open circle. Parentheses always on the infinity or negative infinity. Questions on that? Okay, I'm going to do 2 more. Moving on. Just hang on with me a little bit longer. Okay, here on this one, we're going to do both inequality and interval notation. Okay, so inequality notation. What's happening on the left here? Jack, what's happening on the left?
It's going on to infinity.
Good, positive, negative infinity, good. So an inequality would be x is greater than negative infinity and x is less than, what's happening over here? Allie? Good, x is less than infinity. Oops, I put an 8, sorry about that. I do that sometimes when I go to write my infinity. I don't know about you guys, I accidentally do that once in a while. So x is greater than negative infinity and x is less than infinity. If you write it as 1, you can write it like this. Okay, you don't have to do both of these, one or the other. So you can write it as just 1 like this, or you can write x is greater than negative infinity and x is less than infinity. So what would the interval notation be for this? We already have our beginning and ending from that inequality. What would we do for interval notation? Emma? Do you know where it starts? Yes, good. And then ends? Good. And then what would we put on here? Parentheses or brackets? Parentheses on both, always. Okay, that one is going to be just the same, so I'm going to do a new one for you. Changed it. I want you to make sure you understand. Any questions on this before I move on to the very last example? No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to change that. Okay. Inequality notation. What would the inequality notation be? So what is my smallest value here on this? -1. So x is going to have what relationship to the -1 for the inequality notation? Greater than or equal to. Good. So these values are bigger than or equal to. And then for interval notation, what would interval notation be? Starting, oops, I didn't put -1, sorry. -1. So -1, comma, infinity, because the arrow goes towards infinity, bracket or parentheses here? Bracket and parentheses. Okay. Can I get somebody to pass out the worksheet for me?